Okay, let's do one last check the old Doomsday inventory. I've got my soap, check. I've got my canned goods, check. Got my bread, milk, eggs, and other food stuff that is sure to last me for years to come, check. Toilet paper? Did I remember to get toilet paper? I'm sure there's plenty left at the grocery store. And the most important thing of all, comic books. Yes, after all this time, I can finally sit down and read all these classics. There's finally time enough at last for today, and the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. Time. All the time in the world. Everything. Whoops. Oh, hold on, everybody. Let me just pick that up. No, that's not fair. That's not fair. There was time now. This isn't fair. It's not fair. There was time now. Wait, hold on a second. Lens Crafters is open during the apocalypse, right? Yeah, it's all gonna be fine. I'll see you guys in an hour.
1 hour later.
Folks, things are scary out there right now. And yes, I am aware that the topic of our show last week was how fear is used to sell comics, so before anyone types in the comments down below, believe me, I'm aware of the irony of starting our show off this week with, folks, things are scary out there right now. But with the rapid spread of the coronavirus or COVID-19, a lot of people are panicking. A lot of people are asking questions. Questions like, how far is this going to spread? What is going to happen to my job? What do I do if I end up getting sick? If I get sick, will I be able to cover the high medical costs I'll need to pay? Why aren't there more tests available? Seriously, why aren't there more tests available? We saw this thing coming for months. How are we not better prepared for this? What, did somebody fire the pandemic response team? Nah, that can't be it. Nobody would be that stupid. Point is, a lot of people are going to have to take necessary precautions to deal with the oncoming pandemic, so everyone just stay safe. Listen to the experts on this one, and I don't mean self-proclaimed experts who tell you that they have all the answers as long as you buy their book. No, I mean actual doctors with decades of studying this stuff under their belts. Listen to them and their advice, and at the moment, the two things that these experts are telling everyone to do is A, wash your hands, which, real talk, all of you should have been doing this entire time anyways, and B, stay home. I'm not going to go into the long explanation of how social distancing helps contain the spread of viruses because I hope that all of you are smart enough to know that already, but at the time of this recording, major cities are going under full quarantine, and it's expected that people will be asked to stay indoors and socially distance themselves all the way up until July or August. But this isn't a health or science or political channel. Although, if I can be honest with you guys, I think for the next year, all channels on YouTube are going to have to be a little bit of those. No, this is Comic Class, where we just geek out about comics, and I want to do something to help people. And when you're about to be stuck indoors for about 5 or 6 months, you're going to need entertainment. You're going to need something to keep you from getting cabin fever. So today, I'm going to recommend a lot of comics that are great to binge. I've got a mess of recommendations for books that are good to just sit down and spend a few weeks reading through. Now, what I mean by this is I'm not going to say, yeah, these issues of Spider-Man are good. No, for these books, I specifically thought of long runs. Something with one writer and with a beginning, a middle, and an end that would take you a long time to get through. In fact, there's only one book on the list that I'm going to recommend today that hasn't ended yet. And even that has over 100 issues out, so you're pretty much set to go. Also, I wanted to think of something that would be easily accessible, which means that in times like these, I looked at digital books. Don't get me wrong, if your local store is still open and you feel safe going to your local shop, then, well, hey man, I'm not your dad. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but just use your best judgment. I understand wanting to support your local businesses in these tough times, and believe me, an industry that has to order their books 3 months in advance is about to get hit really hard by a quarantine, so I get wanting to help your local comic shop, but be safe. In fact, if you do work at a comic shop, maybe think about a delivery service or a curbside pickup. Just a suggestion, but again, just use your best judgment. You know your store better than I do. But as I said, a lot of stores may have to close during these difficult times, leaving their regulars looking for books. Or a lot of customers might not feel safe going to their local stores. So for the customers who find themselves in these situations, I look to Comixology. Specifically, Comixology Unlimited. Now, I've spoken about Comixology Unlimited many times before on this channel. So many times, in fact, that every single time I bring it up, I have to clarify, no, I am not getting paid by Comixology. This is not an ad. I'm just kind of a fan of this program. But for anybody who doesn't know, Comixology Unlimited is a program where you pay $5.99 a month and you get discounts on many big name comics, and you also get access to hundreds of comics that they have that are just free for members. So today, for the books that I'm recommending, I specifically wanted to look at books that had issues up on Comixology Unlimited that would be free for anybody who was a part of that membership, so that way you could get the most books without having to break the bank. First up is a book that if you've been reading comics for a while, you've probably had at least someone recommend this to you. It's Bone. Now, I heard from people for years about how amazing this series was, but the concept always seemed just so odd to me. Not so much odd, but just odd that so many people would just all agree it was fantastic. Basically, the premise is that the writer Jeff Smith said that he wanted to write a story where Mickey, Donald, and Goofy went on a Lord of the Rings style adventure. Now, of course, he doesn't work for Disney. Then again, give it a couple of years and we'll all be working for Disney, but that's another video. We've got enough to worry about at the moment. But my point is, even though his initial premise was Mickey, Donald, and Goofy go on a Lord of the Rings style adventure, he didn't use those characters. He actually created his own characters in here. And the weird thing is, it's exactly what he pitched. It combines the slapsticky, goofy, childlike humor of Mickey Mouse with the serious fantasy tone of a Lord of the Rings style story, and they merge perfectly. It is amazing how well these two tones just fit right together. It's like watching two puzzle pieces just line up perfectly. This is one of those series where when I met my wife, she had the first volume of this book and she was a big fan of it, and I had never read it. And so I decided to check it out, and I read that first volume. And then after that, I said, I'm not going to read any more of this until I can find the complete collection. And then I spent many years hunting down that gigantic, massive graphic novel that contained every single issue of it. And I am glad that I waited for it because it is so nice having the entire thing there. This is one of those books that, again, people have been recommending it to me for years. And when I finally sat down and read it, I was stunned at how much I enjoyed it. And as I said, I'm recommending books that you can find on Comixology Unlimited, and you can find the very first volume of Bone up on Comixology Unlimited. So if you're a member of their program, you can read it for free right now. But if you're like me, and after you read that first volume, you think to yourself, wow, I really want to get this entire thing. Yes, only volume 1 is up on Comixology Unlimited. However, if you decide that you want to just read the rest of it, the entire rest of the series, the massive, giant collection of it, is up on Comixology for $20. The entire collection is over 1,300 pages. That comes out to less than $2 per every 100 pages. Yeah, that's a pretty good deal. So if you know that you're going to be stuck indoors for a long period of time and you want a massive book to go through, I think Bone is the perfect thing to sit down with, especially if you have kids. If you have kids and you know that all of you are going to be locked inside for a couple of months now, Bone is a perfect all ages book. And I want to emphasize all ages. This is not a book that only children will be able to enjoy. No, as I said, I read as an adult and I went, oh wow, it does contain a lot of the lighter tones that you would expect from some of those classic Mickey Mouse cartoons, but they also get serious, and the level of imagination in here is absolutely something that you would expect from some high fantasy series. It is a series that really does appeal to all ages. Now, I know many of you might have heard of Bone when you found out that it was going to become a Netflix animated series. So speaking of comics that got turned into Netflix series, Lock and Key. Okay, I know I used Netflix as the segue there. Many of you might have checked out that Lock and Key show on Netflix and you thought to yourself, yeah, this is all right, but I have no intention of reading the book. I will go ahead and let you guys know right now, if you're a longtime fan of the show, you've already heard me say this before, but Lock and Key is not my favorite horror comic of all time. It's my favorite comic of all time. Period. End of sentence. Lock and Key is my favorite comic of all time. This is a series that just hit all the right notes with me. And speaking as a Lock and Key fan, the Netflix Lock and Key show is fine. It's okay. They didn't screw it up, but they didn't exactly succeed either. It is a perfectly serviceable, fine adaptation. My point is, if you watch that and you were like, it's all right, then go ahead and check out the book. Because the book takes the good ideas that they carried over into the show, and they were able to make it work so much better in that series. This is a book that, yes, it is a horror series. However, it is far more of a dark fantasy series. It's sort of like Harry Potter, but with more teeth. Basically, the premise of it is, for anybody who doesn't know, is that these 3 children recently lost their father, so they decide to move back into his old home up in Maine, because this series was written by Stephen King's son, so of course it's going to be set in Maine. And when they move into his old house, they discover that there are these keys hidden all around the house. And these keys grant them very unique abilities, or allow them to go to different places. So it's got a little bit of Harry Potter magic, a little bit of a Lion Witch in the Wardrobe. You're going into a strange new setting kind of vibe. But the more they investigate these keys, the more they learn that there is a dark secret behind them. They're connected to something much more sinister than they initially thought. And there is a villain out there who is trying to access these keys. And this villain has a deep relationship with their father and with the other people in this town. So there are many different elements in this story that all take a good long time building up. This is one of the few books that I've ever read that actually made me audibly gasp at moments. And when I got to the end of it, I won't lie, I burst into tears at the ending of this book. This is a series that will hit every emotional mark you could imagine. I cannot recommend it enough. And if you are a Comixology Unlimited member, every single trade except for the last one is available on Comixology Unlimited. If you have the program, you lose nothing by checking this series out. You can read the entire thing up until the final trade. That makes this a perfect time to get into Lock and Key. Now, I was considering recommending to people Saga, because that's one of those indie books that everybody out there is talking about. However, that series is not done, and real talk, none of us even know when it's going to end. That thing could go on for 10 more years. It could go on for 5 more years before it even comes back from its most recent break. However, writer Brian K. Vaughan is indeed an incredibly talented comic book creator, and I did want to recommend some of his works, so I've got 2 lined up here. These were the 2 that really introduced me to this writer. So for anybody out there who you've heard good stuff about Saga and you want to check out other stuff from this writer, check out Why the Last Man. It is a series that is all about a virus or a plague, or okay, maybe it's not the best book to bring up at the moment, but something out there has killed off every single creature on the planet that has a Y chromosome. So every male on the planet just drops dead at the exact same moment, except for a young, hustling street magician named York and his pet monkey. They are the only 2 men left alive, and it's the story of them having to travel across the entire world because at the time that everything happened, his girlfriend was on the other side of the planet. So he's now going to set out to try and find her. However, a lot of people are kind of after the last man on Earth. So he teams up with the Secret Service agent who is sworn to protect him, and he also teams up with a scientist who's going to try and study him to learn what exactly caused this big crisis and why he was completely unaffected by it. And this is a series that gets deep with its characters. This is a series that is not afraid to really delve into the emotional damage that everyone is suffering in this world. Again, I understand that with everything going on right now, it might not be the best book to check out at the moment. However, I do know that there's a lot of readers out there who the best way for them to kind of deal with something going on in the real world is to read about something kind of similar happening within a fantasy world. So if you are one of those people out there, Why the Last Man, the story about a crumbling society in the midst of a giant mysterious disease, yeah, go ahead, check it out if you are one of those readers. Again, this is a very long series, but the first 2 trades of it are up on Comixology Unlimited, so if you just want to give it a try, just get a taste of it, bam, there you go. However, when it comes to Brian K. Vaughan, everybody knows Y the Last Man. Everybody out there knows Saga. Everybody out there knows Runaways, which, by the way, the very first 12 issues of Runaways are also up on Comixology Unlimited, so if you've never checked that book out, yeah, there's a reason everyone knows Runaways. That series is incredibly good. Go and check that one out as well. But there's one book from Brian K. Vaughan that I don't really hear nearly enough people talking about. However, I fell head over heels for this series. I love it. It may possibly be my favorite Brian K. Vaughan book. And recently, the rights for it were purchased by Oscar Isaac to be turned into a motion picture, which is ironic because it has the exact same name as another movie that Oscar Isaac was in. Ex Machina. Now, this is a series that is about an engineer who one day is given superpowers, and his superpower is that he can communicate with machines. And I don't mean that as in he's just really good with machines. I mean, he can turn to a computer and go, turn on, computer turns on. He can turn to a gun and say, don't fire, and then the gun won't fire. It's not even electronic machines. It's just any kind of a construct that counts as a machine. Yeah, it's kind of big, crazy, far out there ideas, but it works. And he doesn't live in a world of superpowers. He doesn't live in a place where this stuff is common. The Justice League is not going to come and recruit him. No, he lives in a world where nobody has superpowers. So he is kind of unique in this way. So he goes out there and he decides to become the very first superhero. And he tries that for a while and then he decides, I'm not actually really helping that many people. I mean, anything that I do, it doesn't really matter beyond the end of the day. If I want to really create some change in the world, I have to get into politics. So he goes out there, reveals his identity, and starts running to be mayor of New York City. And he's running as an independent, and everybody just knows him as that crazy superhero guy, so he is in last place. Nobody cares about this guy. Then September 11th happens, and he, with his ability to control machines, is able to stop the second plane from taking down one of the towers. And then, after he does that, he skyrockets in the polls. He jumps way up in the polls, and he ends up winning, so this becomes kind of 2 stories. On the one hand, it's a bunch of flashbacks to what it was like for him as a superhero. It's a bunch of stories about what it was like when he was out there as the original only superhero in the world, trying to figure out how he should use these powers. But then the other half of the story is the story of him being mayor of the largest city in America when he was an independent. He didn't owe anything to anybody. Nobody backed his campaign. He didn't have any donors he needed to make promises to. So it's kind of what happens when someone gets into a position of power and he's kind of just free to do whatever he wants. There aren't that many comics out there, aside from autobiography comics, that really delve into American politics. So if you're fascinated by that kind of stuff, if you enjoy stuff like, say, The West Wing or other political dramas out there, then yeah, check out Ex Machina. It is great. And again, I'm recommending stuff to people that is on Comixology Unlimited. The entire series is on Comixology Unlimited. All of it. You have literally nothing to lose if you want to check this series out. You have Comixology Unlimited for $5.99 a month. You can read this entire thing at the time of this recording. Now, I know some people out there, they might be thinking to themselves, okay, you've been recommending like some kind of serious stuff back to back to back here. What about something a little bit more lighthearted? What about something that's a little bit more fun? Well, I know that there are a lot of college students right now who have had their schools canceled, so you might want some piece of entertainment that really speaks to you, that's really aimed at college students, at people who are out there on their own for the first time. I have talked about this book so many times, but I have to bring it up here again, Giant Days. This is just a slice of life series about 3 girls going off to college for the first time, and it's hilarious. It's one of those books that after I read and after I really started to get into it, I kept thinking to myself, someone needs to pick this up as a show. Someone needs to buy the rights to this book and turn it into a TV series because these characters are so good. I want to see them in as many formats as I possibly can. However, the big problem with Giant Days, and the thing that always kind of makes me nervous about recommending it, is that even though I love the series, it took several issues before I really got in there. It's one of those books where you need to know all the ins and outs of these characters. You need to really know all their inside jokes. You need to know their relationships with everybody before you really start to enjoy what makes this series so unique. So you do have to read a couple issues of it before you can really get into it. If you have Comixology Unlimited, the first 8 volumes of it are available for free. Yeah, the first 8 volumes, I repeat, are available for free. Yeah, that's more than the first couple issues. If this is a book for you, you will easily be able to read past that point where you understand everything and you're fully immersed in it. Again, I have recommended this book so many times. In fact, in all honesty, I think I might have recommended Giant Days more times than any other series I've ever talked about on this channel. So if you've always heard me talking about it and you've thought to yourself, okay, maybe one day I'll get into it, this is probably that day. The first 8 volumes, you're not gonna get a better chance than this. Go for it, get into it. Now, Giant Days, it's a great comedy, but if you want a comedy that's a little bit more, let's just say, savage, a little bit more brutal, it's got kind of a darker tone to it. If that's the kind of comedy that you're looking for, Chew. Chew is one of those books that when it was out and it was in stores, everybody was talking about it. Everybody was praising it. But it feels like the moment it left stands, it feels like as soon as that book was done, everybody just stopped talking about it. And it kind of drives me crazy that this really unique, amazing series is starting to fall by the wayside. Everybody's starting to forget about it. We should not forget about something as good as Chew. This is a series that is set in a world where everyone is panicking about the bird flu, because as this pandemic spread across the planet, one day large crowds of people all dropped dead at the exact same time, and I swear to you, I did not mean to give these books a very unfortunate theme when I picked them out. It just kind of worked out that our society at the moment is halfway between a dark, gritty, dystopian early 2000s Vertigo book and a late 2000s lighthearted, trippy, weird image book. Anywho, as I was saying, yes, this is a series that is set in a world where one day several people all dropped dead at the exact same time and the government blamed the bird flu, so they outlawed chicken. Yes, this is a series that is set in a world where chicken was outlawed, so all chicken restaurants are shut down. And we follow the adventures of Anthony Chew, who works for the FDA, which in this world, where chicken is illegal, the FDA has become the highest source of law enforcement in the land. So he goes out there to try and shut down people who are illegally dealing in chicken, except that Chew has a unique ability. He has the ability to eat something, and when he takes a bite of something, he can see all the memories of the thing he's eating. Whatever he eats, he can see the entire past of that thing. If he eats a burger, he gets to know the entire life of the cow that he just ate. If he eats an orange, he gets to see that orange growing up on the tree, falling off, being picked, being shipped off in the crates to the grocery store, being taken by the shelf, being prepared for him. He sees all of that. So he is dealing with a string of murder mysteries. I'm going to leave it at that. It's a guy who, whenever he eats something, he can see everything that happened to it. He has to figure out what happened to a bunch of murder victims or to criminals. Yeah, it goes to some kind of dark places. However, the sense of humor of this book is so out there. It's so crazy. There was nothing else with a sense of humor quite like Chew. Just to give you an idea of how crazy the sense of humor for this book is, there is a recurring character in here called El Pollo. And El Pollo is a luchador chicken, and it's just the most badass chicken that ever lived. That's it. Like, it's their secret weapon when they have to go on a case. They just let this thing out and it just destroys everything around it. And every now and again, they'll be talking about, yeah, I wish we had El Pollo on this mission. And then it'll go, oh, where's El Pollo? And it will then cut to a one-off joke that just shows like El Pollo fighting a giant space octopus that's trying to take over the planet. It's jokes like that. That's the sense of humor behind this book, and it works. It's brilliant. I recommend this book to everyone out there who enjoys darker comedic series. And again, Comixology Unlimited, the first 5 trades are up. That is a good, solid chunk of chew for you to check out right now. In fact, speaking of darker comedic series, yes, I am trying to recommend books to everyone out there that are available on Comixology Unlimited because that makes them very easily accessible and very cheap at a time when everybody might be trying to save money and when people might need easily accessible books. However, there is one book that is not available on Comixology Unlimited, but I do have to come in here and recommend it because it is a great series to binge. It's 17 issues, although real talk, 2 of the issues in the middle are completely unnecessary and they were just filler, so it's more of just like 15 issues. But I have to come in here and recommend what I think is one of the best comedic series to come out of either Marvel or DC in maybe my entire life. Superior Foes of Spider-Man. This is another series I have talked about many times before in the past, but it's been a while, so just as a refresher to everyone out there, this is a series that is all about Spider-Man's lesser-known villains, his D-class villains, all trying to form a Sinister Six, all coming together to try and form their own group of bad guys, and just kind of stinking at it, just betraying each other, just getting in way over their head. And it's also a series that's all about how the D-class villains of the Marvel Universe view everyone else in the Marvel Universe. Like, they talk about how they view Spider-Man, how they view, like, Luke Cage and Iron Fist. They talk about how they view the big professional supervillains out there. And it's a very unique look inside the mind of these characters. But again, what makes the series work is that it's hilarious. And it's unapologetically hilarious. And what I mean by that is that they will do many jokes in here that you're gonna feel bad laughing at. And let me just go ahead and give you an example of what I mean. I don't mean that they're going to do like offensive humor. What I mean by that is that they might do something terrible to another character, to like their best friend. They might double cross their best friend, stab them right in the back, but while they're doing it, they're gonna make a joke about doing it that makes you just go, oh, I can't stay mad at you, Boomerang. In fact, I have heard from many people out there that they are really enjoying Boomerang in the current Amazing Spider-Man series. Yeah, if you're enjoying Boomerang in the current Amazing Spider-Man series, you need to check out Superior Foes of Spider-Man. The guy who is currently writing Amazing Spider-Man wrote Superior Foes. This is why that writer loves Boomerang so much. It's because he was so great in this book. Heck, I think just the fact that I can come in here and say, after I read this book, I went, wow, Boomerang is one of my favorite comic book characters. I think that sums up enough why this book is so special. Again, the series, sadly, is the only book I am talking about today that doesn't have anything up on Comixology Unlimited. However, every single issue is only $1.69 if you have Comixology Unlimited. In fact, the trades are like $9 if you have Comixology Unlimited, so you still get a decent chunk of books in there for not too much money. In fact, this serves as a pretty good segue. Speaking of Superior Foes of Spider-Man, Spider-Man is a superhero. Most of the books I've been talking about so far have been indie series that kind of focus on slice of life or big fantastical adventures or darker apocalyptic stories. Some of you are here just for the superheroes. Some of you are asking, okay, when are you going to talk about the people with superpowers going out there and saving the day? Yes, as I said, I didn't want to come in here and talk specifically about like, well, these couple issues of Superman are good. These couple issues of Batman are good. Here, let me just pick and choose for you some storylines in here for you to check out. I wanted to give you something that had a clear beginning, middle, and end. However, there are some superhero books out there that are really good for that. For example, Invincible. Invincible is one of those series that a lot of people out there have probably had recommended to them over the years, but there are still some people who are hesitant to check it out. Invincible for many years was my favorite superhero comic. It was that comic that I could not wait to read the next issue of. It is one of those series that is perfect for binging. It's one of those books where every single thing that gets introduced will eventually come back. There is nothing in this series that is lost. Even like a small character that you look at and you just go, yeah, they're not important in any way, shape, or form. They're gonna come back in some way that might actually kind of be important. That makes this a book that is very rewarding to binge. It's one of those books that you actually enjoy just reading the entire thing at once. Also, it's a series that really does play out like a soap opera. You do see these characters go back and forth with their relationships with each other, and you see them really form bonds with one another, but those bonds get tested over and over again. They start to have doubts in themselves, and big revelations get made about certain characters that you know that change the entire face of the entire series, and none of that stuff gets retconned. It all continues on, and you get to watch as these events continue on. That's the kind of stuff that I want from a superhero comic. Now, I do have to put one big asterisk in here. I stopped reading Invincible at one point because there is something that happens in this series that just turned me off to it so hard. There was one particular thing that happened that just made me go, oh, I don't want to follow this book anymore. Like, at all. And I did, while I was working at a comic book store, continue to read it. I didn't buy it, but on my lunch break I would read it. And it was still good. It did still keep my interest. But that particular thing, it never left my mind. I could just never get past that. However, I do know a lot of other people out there who love this series, who they didn't have that problem. They were able to keep reading it. They had no problem continuing past that point, so okay, that's fine. If you guys still enjoy it that much, that is perfectly fine. I'm just letting everybody out there know there might come that point for you guys as well where you get turned off to the book. However, that didn't happen for me until around issue 100. So if you're reading this series, even if you get turned off at that point, you've still got like 100 issues in there to enjoy. And as I said, it is up on Comixology Unlimited. The first 10 trades are up there. Yeah, that's a lot. Speaking of other superhero things that you guys might be interested in, that you might have heard people talking about, you've always been interested in checking out, Valiant Comics has been one of those things that if you are really into the comic book community, you have to have heard at least somebody bring them up at some point. They had a big comeback back in 2012 in which they brought back all these characters and creations that they had back in the 90s, and they updated them perfectly. This wasn't just, yeah, people like the way that we were back in the 90s, so let's just do that again. No. They came in here and they went, okay, we have to update these characters. And they did it so well. And they got just the right writers to work on all these books. So which Valiant series am I going to recommend to you guys? I'm going to recommend pretty much all of them. Yeah. I went around on Comixology Unlimited and I thought to myself, okay, I want to recommend something from Valiant. I want to give everybody something that they can check out from Valiant because there's a lot of good stuff that they have done over the years. What's available from Valiant Comics up on Comixology Unlimited? Almost everything that they've done. Yeah, I'll admit they kind of go all over the place with their titles. They have a whole bunch of tones in there, so it's kind of hard for me to come in here and go, this is the one thing you should read, because depending on what stuff you enjoy, there's a lot of stuff that you'll enjoy reading from them. But I was delighted to find out Valiant Comics leaned into Comixology Unlimited hard. Valiant Comics leaned into Comixology Unlimited and said, this is what we're going to put all of our investments into. This is what we're going to put our faith into when it comes to the digital marketplace. Because if it's more than like a year old, it's up on Comixology Unlimited. So if you've heard about Bloodshot, if you saw that movie, or if you couldn't go out and see the movie because, like me, all the movie theaters around you are closed up, then yeah, go and check out the Bloodshot comic. It's actually really good. If you enjoy stuff like the X-Men, but you want to be like a little bit more street level, check out Harbinger. If you enjoy goofy, crazy, oddball couples in superhero costumes, check out Quam and Woody. If you enjoy comedic world-traveling adventures, check out Archer and Armstrong. There's too many good things to recommend from Valiant Comics that they've been doing over the last 8 years. So luckily, almost everything they've done over the last 8 years is up over on Comixology Unlimited. As I said, I'm trying to recommend things to people that have like a beginning, a middle, and end, because I think that makes it very rewarding to go in there and binge it. You have that start and you have that end point to look forward to. But Valiant has so much stuff up over on Comixology Unlimited, you can kind of just dive into it. You can kind of just jump into that pool. You don't even have to check out anything else that I've been recommending to you guys. You could just spend the next month just checking out every single thing that Valiant has done over there. Next up, this one might be a little bit of an odd one, but stick with me on this. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yes, IDW brought back the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles several years ago, just like they did with pretty much every 80s property that they could get their hands on. Transformers, Ghostbuster, like if it existed back in the 80s, IDW turned it into a comic. And I remember when the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic originally came back, I looked at it and I just thought to myself, oh dude, this looks like it's trying to go serious with the Ninja Turtles. It's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. How are you going to make that serious? This just seems like a horrible idea. They found a way to do it and it was a brilliant idea. I had to eat so much crow on that because this is a series where they take all the weird, crazy, zany stuff from the entire history of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and they set it up in a way that is pleasing to the fans. So anybody out there who knows these characters, you go, oh, it's just like this thing, it's just like this thing. And oh, they mentioned that thing, I know that thing over there. But if you know nothing about these characters, they introduce them to you perfectly. And they establish a world where all of it actually fits. Like, I keep thinking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I think to myself, yeah, just listen to that name. It just sounds so goofy and weird. How are you going to make that serious? And the way that this book is structured, it made me look at it and go, you know what, if this existed in the DC universe or in the Marvel universe, I wouldn't question it at all. If this existed side by side with the X-Men, side by side with the Teen Titans, it would fit perfectly. I mean, there's crazy zany stuff over at Marvel that I don't question. There's crazy zany stuff over at DC that I don't question. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was able to fit that exact tone that I enjoy in the crazy zany concepts over at Marvel or DC without making it feel odd. When they try to have a more serious tone in this book, I look at that serious tone and go, that fits perfectly with all these big mutants walking around. It absolutely works. And also, this is one of those series where they are not afraid to introduce so many characters, but they take their time introducing all of them. And if you stick with the series, it becomes so rewarding because you go, okay, the Turtles are over here, but then Shredder is over here, but then you got Krang over here, and then you got these guys over here, and then you got Baxter Stockman over there, and then you got this other group over there. It's one where they set up so many different moving parts, and watching how all of those parts slowly interact with each other, move around, go from one place to the next, form alliances, it's great. I love watching not these characters, but this entire world grow and evolve. I honestly think the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic does the whole world evolution idea better than I see in almost any other comic out there. And yes, it is weird for me to say that. Now, as I said, I want to recommend books that have begin, mills, and ends, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has not ended. It just recently passed issue number 100. However, that's 100 issues. That is a good chunk of books that you guys can check out, and the first 7 volumes are up on Comixology Unlimited, and I went back and I checked what was happening around volume number 7. Ooh yeah, you will know if you like this book or not by the time you get to volume number 7. Big major things were happening in that volume, and after that volume, if you want to see more stuff like that, it continues to evolve and grow with every single storyline. This is another series where also there's no wasted meat. There is nothing on any of these books that feels like, yeah, that's a throwaway issue. We didn't really need this. This entire storyline here, there was no point in that. Every single storyline matters in this book. Oh my gosh, I'm just sitting here talking about this book and I kind of want to stop and go back and read all those books again. They're really darn good, everybody. Now, speaking of comics that are about superheroes but takes on a little bit of a darker tone, this is a series that I know a lot of you might never have heard of. If you were into the indie comic scene back in the 90s, yeah, you know this book. But for a lot of the younger audiences out there, this one might be completely new to you guys. Rising Stars. I will admit, I read this book back in the early 2000s when I found it at a convention, but I haven't really thought about it since then. But when I was looking up what books are available on Comixology Unlimited, I saw this was up there, and the moment I saw that, it just came rushing back to me. All my memories about this series and how it just blew me away when I picked this book up. I will admit, again, I read this in the early 2000s when there wasn't really a lot of stuff out there like this series. So today, I don't know if it's going to have the same impact on people out there, but I still want to come in here and recommend it. Basically, the concept of this series is that one day, something happens, and every child on the planet that is born on that day ends up having unique superpowers. And the government takes them and they start studying them, so every single one of these kids from all over the planet, they start coming together and they start kind of learning about themselves, they form connections with each other. But as time goes along, they all grow up and they leave the place where they're being studied and they go off and they live their own lives. And some of them become superheroes, some of them just try and become regular people, but they all have powers. However, all these years later, something starts happening that starts bringing them back together again. Some of them start dying off and they start to find out what happens when some of them start to die off. They do indeed share some kind of a connection with each other. I've spoken many times on this channel before about how so many people out there try and do the dark, serious take on superheroes, and I think so many of them do it poorly. This was one of the earliest examples I can remember reading in which I thought to myself, oh, this is what that looks like when it's done well. This is what it looks like when somebody actually succeeds at that. And as I said, to me, back in the early 2000s, this series blew my mind. But today, I don't know if it's going to have the same impact on everyone out there. Luckily, this is another series where all of it is available on Comixology Unlimited. You have nothing to lose by checking this book out. Go ahead, if anything that I just described in there sounds interesting to you guys, go and check this book out. Also, it is worth noting, it was written by J. Michael Straczynski, a legendary writer when it comes to television and comics. So if you're familiar with his work and you want to see more stuff by him, this is a series to check out. And the last thing that I'm going to recommend from Comixology Unlimited, this is another one of those books that in the early 2000s, when I started checking it out, it kind of blew my mind. The Swamp Thing collection from Alan Moore. I have brought up this collection a couple times on this channel, especially when talking about the current Immortal Hulk series, because I've said what Al Ewing is doing on Immortal Hulk is what Alan Moore did with Swamp Thing back in his run, and I know some people out there might never have checked that series out. They might not exactly know what I'm referencing when I talk about that. Alan Moore came onto this series back when Swamp Thing was just a big green grass monster, and he came in here and went, let's get weird, let's get psychedelic, let's get spooky, let's get crazy with this book. And he turned Swamp Thing into basically a god. He turned him from a guy in a big foam rubber costume into God, is what he essentially did in this series. And it is crazy watching how he did that. How he just went step by step with the construction of this character, just breaking him down, quite literally, and then building him back up. It is a masterful look at how someone can completely change a character around. So if you have never checked this out, there's 5 volumes of it. The first 3 are free on Comixology Unlimited. So you can read more than half of this thing, decide for yourself if you want to keep going, and bam, you're good to go. So there you go. Those are the books that I wanted to recommend from Comixology Unlimited. However, I have one other recommendation for everybody out there who wants a lot of something to binge, but you don't want to spend a lot of money. Speaking of books that a lot of comic fans might have been interested in, might have heard about, might have wanted to check out, but you've always been afraid to jump in. When I was working in the comic book store, I saw so many people who had only read American comics come up to me and go, I've always wanted to get into manga, but I don't know where to start. I don't know how to start reading manga. Where should I go? Should I just read with issue number 1 of something? Because there's a lot of issues for this thing. I don't know if I really want to take that plunge. And I can understand when you want to get into, like, say, I don't know, One Piece, and there's like 40 freaking volumes of that thing. Real talk, there's probably more than 40 volumes of that thing by now. There might be like 100 volumes of that thing by now. But you know it's going to be a big undertaking. You are afraid to actually take that plunge. Shonen Jump, the biggest manga comic in the entire world, they have their own online subscription service, where if you pay $1.99 a month, just $2 a month, you can read every single thing that they've ever done. Their entire back catalog is available over on the Shonen Jump website, all translated in English for just $2 a month. I have recommended My Hero Academia to people out there so many times. I have talked about My Hero Academia and how much I love that series, and I have geeked out about that thing so hard over the course of the years that it has been coming out on this channel. I remember just when the first volume of that thing came out and it came to my local comic store, I decided to check it out. I enjoyed it so much. We did a video just talking about that first volume. I didn't even know that thing was going to be a huge runaway success, but it has indeed become a massive runaway success. So if you are interested in checking that series out, or other series like, say, One Punch Man, One Piece, all these other series that have been going on for years and years and years and have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of issues out there, but you're afraid of spending that much money on it, and you don't know if you're gonna have the time to catch up on all these series, hey man, I'm recommending books to people out there because I think you might all have a lot of time on your hands, and I know that you want to try and save money right now. $2 a month lets you just read all of that. Just all of it. And again, not coming in here and recommending this because Shonen Jump is paying me. Have you seen the size of my channel? And have you seen the size of Shonen Jump? Shonen Jump doesn't need me. They don't need me to come in here and recommend their service. I just think that's a really good service. For $2, you can read thousands and thousands of manga. Yeah, go ahead and check it out. Sign up for that service if you want something to just binge the crud out of over the next couple of months. But there you have it, everyone. Those are my recommendations for some great comics at cheap price that come to you directly in your own home, so you don't even have to leave. And they're great for binge reading, which is the ideal thing to do when you can't leave said home. Yeah, hey, welcome to the end of the show, everyone, where I just go completely off script and just start rambling. That's the part that you guys enjoy the most. Or maybe not. Maybe you all hate it the most. But yeah, the next couple months, they're not going to be fun, to put it as light as humanly possible, but we are going to get through it. But it's going to be a lot easier for us to get through it if you guys listen to the experts, if you all use your best judgment. When people tell you stay indoors, when people tell you wash your hands, make sure that you listen to them. But also, there's going to be a lot of people out there who get hit by this way harder than some of us. There's going to be some people out there who they're going to need help. And as I said, we're going to get through this, but it's going to be a lot easier for us to get through this if we actually look out for each other and if we actually try and help each other. And I know it's going to be hard to help each other when everyone is telling us don't go outdoors or touch each other, but if you are in any kind of a situation to actually help other people, then make sure that you make yourself open. Make sure that you try and provide assistance in any way that you can. But I just wanted to come on here and give that message to everyone. I'm sure that you guys don't even need me to say that. It just feels better to actually put that out there in the universe. But again, listen to the experts on this thing. And if you guys want to follow me around the internet, I really shouldn't have connected that to the part about saying listen to the experts. I'm in no way an expert on pandemics. I'm an expert on goofy dumb crap. So if you guys want to follow me for my goofy dumb crap, then you can find me on Twitter at Professor Thorgy, or you can follow me on Twitch at Professor Thorgy as well. Every single Saturday we stream over on Twitch. In fact, last weekend we did an entire weekend-long stream in which we went through some Resident Evil games because it really just felt appropriate at the moment. But if you want to join us for those, like I said, every single Saturday we're over there on Twitch at twitch.tv/Professor Thorgy. And if you want even more content from us, we have a gaming channel, Thorgy's Arcade, trying to promote that a little bit more. So make sure that you check that channel out as well. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and just be safe. Bye.